Hello, everybody. A warm welcome from Berlin. This is another series of SWAT Explains. We're talking today about Watson AIOps Event Manager, and we want to deep dive into Runbook Automation, what it is, how to use, how to integrate, how it looks and feels. And for that, I have two friends of mine from IBM Development with me, Sebastian and Andreas. So, Sebastian, would you like to introduce you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Fred. So hello, my name is Sebastian Wegmann. I'm the lead architect for Runbook Automation, and I'm looking forward to show you some of the cool features that we have in the product later on in the demo.
Over to you, Andreas.
Yeah, my name is Andreas. I'm the development manager for the product, which is actually mainly developed in the nice Böbling area in southern Germany.
And I think you want to introduce the topic as it is as well. What is Runbook Automation? Can you say something around that?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the major pain points we hear from our customers today in IT operations is that they have to solve more and more IT problems with less and less resources. Most people have some kind of documentation about procedures already, but to be successful and efficient, really the point is that you want to have this in one place in a very structured format, and you want to know which one of these procedures are proven to be successful. This really makes the efficiency to solve your IT problems, and this is what Runbook Automation is all about.
That's exactly what few reference customers also are doing currently. So one of the examples we have, they're currently using something like 1,300 runbooks, isn't that?
It's actually more, it's almost 3,000.
Wow. And they were coming with a database which was reflecting more or less their current events that are potentially possible in their environment. And they have written in the past knowledge articles, and the knowledge article describes how to resolve each and every of these particular events, what to do, what kind of steps to do, log into a remote system, what kind of parameters to look for, how it should look like. So a really good database and really cool knowledge in there, but it's all manual. There's a lot of interactivity in there. So it's good to have this kind of knowledge already recorded, but really efficient is something that was always lacking from that side. And that is exactly where Runbook Automation comes into play. It really saves a lot of time. And if you do have some kind of recording of these kind of knowledge articles, this is a fantastic start of starting a Runbook Automation project. And Runbook Automation is a piece of the Watson AIOps portfolio. The Watson AIOps portfolio is made out of several components. So we have the core AI engine, which is called AI Manager, that collects inputs from various sources. We have in the event manager, the metric manager, topology manager, but we can also do direct feeds from logs and tickets and also natural language. So for example, if you're searching for a specific problem string that is coming from an event, that is something that Watson AIOps chatbot understands, and you can search using this natural language directly with the AI manager. And on the right side, you can see these outputs that we have. So traditionally, we have really good integrated dashboards, which were integrated within the Netcool environment. And the AI manager just adds to that with a new way of operations, which is the ChatOps integration. In the past, it was just Slack, but very soon we're enhancing these kind of chatbot capabilities. So it's not just a Slack channel in there, it's a chatbot behind and some kind of interactivity. And of course, we do have interfaces in there, which is called the APIs, mainly REST. So what we're concentrating today is the event manager piece, because part of the event manager installation is Runbook Automation. And Runbook Automation integrates directly into these components of Event Manager. But it's not isolated on Event Manager. You can fairly easily integrate Runbook Automation into all the other tools of your environment. You can do this launch in context. You can hand over parameters. So Runbooks can be integrated quite easily into all these components in the whole environment. And that makes it very handy, and that's the reason why this is so appreciated by our existing customer base. They really love it. And why is it so important to have this kind of efficiency and automation race in the environment? So traditionally, if we look at the event manager core, it is taking an awful lot of events into the whole system. So that's one of the capabilities. We're capable of taking gazillions of events into our system. And as soon as it's received within our probes, our interfaces, then these events are safe and they can be recorded. And then a process starts that we call noise reduction. So the noise reduction is very, very important, because the more you integrate, the more noise you have coming from all these various systems, the more of information you get into the system. And what you really want to isolate is, what are my current problems in my environment? And everything that helps me to find out what kind of problem I do have in my environment is appreciated, but I just want to have one single record of my problems. And everything that is not necessary should not be in my event management environment. And therefore, we do have several steps of noise reduction in here. We do several ways of correlation. So positive and negative events correlation, that's something we call generic clear correlation, where we do a matching, a pair matching in a generic way, where we're looking for problem records. So for example, there's a link down on a router interface, and within that message you get something like a node, which is node name is reflecting where is it coming from, and you obviously have information about the link, so there's some kind of interface in there. And if subsequently later a good message is coming from the same interface, from the same node, something like a link up message, then this is potentially something that clears the original problem. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So these kind of matchings and correlations do take place in the object server, and that significantly reduces the amount of events that we do have to care of. Because in the end, an operator has to look at the remaining events and has to decide, do I have to take action on a specific event or not? And therefore, the more we can correlate and eliminate with this noise reduction process, the better it is. So therefore, we have several steps of eliminating all these various levels and coming into the end with the actionable events out of the system. And the actionable events are the single records that indicate, wow, this is something that looks like a problem in your environment, and you better have a look about that. And how to rectify this kind of problem is exactly what we're doing with Runbook Automation, because Runbook Automation is a recorded procedure that helps us to solve problems in our environments. And that's exactly what we want to do. And the more automation we can put into that environment, the better it is for the operations team, and the more efficient it is, because you cannot take care of hundreds of millions of events per day with an operation team. That is simply not possible. And therefore, you need to have this kind of noise reduction in place to be efficient. And that's exactly what we provide with these tool sets. And Runbook Automation fits in nicely in here, because as soon as we know what kind of problems do we have in our environment, then we are interested in how to resolve this kind of problem. And if there is a proven procedure that is recorded and already present and possibly automatically linked to the problem record, then this is very, very handy for an operator. He just goes into the Runbook Automation and works through the procedure. And that's how to resolve quite a large deal of problems. There are not runbooks for everything, so obviously this is a living system. You will create more and more of these runbooks. There are a few sample runbooks that come out of the box. We do have a community to share runbooks, so all these kind of things are there. And we go into more details, and I'm handing over now to Andreas. Do you want to explain the principles of runbooks a little bit more?
Yeah, so normally you would not start directly with fully automating things. The first question you probably have is, how do I get my existing documentation into Runbook system? So you don't have to start from scratch because Runbook Automation contains an editor, so you can do what you already know, like a simple copy and paste of texts and commands and so on. But Runbook Automation also has a full API. So with some simple scripting, you can import artifacts you already have, for instance, from documents or HTML pages or whatever. And then you will start with manual runbooks. So a manual runbook actually is a procedure in a structured way so that you can describe all the steps you have to go through to solve a specific problem. At some point, you know that this is working, and probably you're a bit tired of copying, pasting commands to your command line to execute scripts on the target system. So the next step would be semi-automatic runbooks. This means in your runbook, you can enter parameters, and you can directly, by clicking on a button, you can execute a script on your target system, and you get the result directly in your runbook. You can see the results, and you can also use the results in the further steps of the runbook.
So this spec screen is a response, isn't it?
This is a response directly from your live system, and the output you see in that window you can reuse, and you can take part of this as a parameter and hand it over to a next step, the runbook, which is a very powerful means. Now, probably if you did run a runbook successfully for many times, and actually after running a runbook, you can give it a star rating, say, okay, this was successful, this did solve my problems in a great way. So probably if you have a runbook which successfully solved the same problem many times and has a great rating, you might consider full automating it. And this goes to the next step of fully automating runbooks. So an event really triggers the runbook and automatically runs the procedure and solves your problem. And this, as you can imagine, significantly reduces the amount of work you have to do in your IT operations business. And with that, I hand it over back to Fred.
Thanks, Andreas. Just to repeat, we have 3 flavors of runbook automations. The first one is the manual runbook, which describes a step-by-step procedure, how to resolve a specific problem. We can hand over parameters, which is the context. So for example, if we have a problem that is coming from a specific node, we can hand over the node name, or if this is something like a disk space problem, we can hand over the disk that is in question. And this is already quite handy because with this kind of parameter handover, you significantly reduce the risk of typos. So because this is something that is handed over from the event management system to the runbook automation system, and it's just no longer copy and paste problems, it's just there, ready to use. And that's also something that makes it significantly easier to have these kind of runbooks, because with parameterization, you make these runbooks more generic. And so, for example, if you do have a runbook that is around solving a disk space problem, then you can write this for a specific environment, for example, Windows or Linux system, and you make it specific for that, but you do not have it to make it specific for each and every server that is in that environment. You can use the same runbook over and over, and the parameterization makes it generic. So this is pretty cool. And of course, we want to see something about that, which is going to come with Sebastian. Sebastian is going to have the demo for us today. But before we go into the demo, I just want to talk a little bit about what kind of architecture possibilities we have. So with Watson AIOps, we can install everything into an OpenShift environment. That's something we call a cloud deployment. So the OpenShift environment can be hosted locally in your own data center, or can be hosted in the IBM data center, or can also be hosted in any other provider. So this is definitely something that can be considered. But you also can install parts of the Watson AIOps portfolio in your own data center. That's the traditional netcool part, which we call Event Manager. And that's exactly where most of our existing customers are today. They do have an IT service management installation, which is made out of many integrated systems, which has dashboarding in their monitoring, in their incident management, event management, all meshed together. And you want to enhance these existing management environments with the new capabilities to manage cloud-based environments and possibly also have our new analytics engines. And that's exactly where the OpenShift environment comes into play. You have to install a Runbook automation on an OpenShift environment. So OpenShift is used as a runtime environment, and in there, Runbook automation runs as a microservice architecture. That's the same for the topology manager, for the AI manager, also for the event manager analytics engine. These are all microservice architectures which do require an OpenShift environment to run. And putting this OpenShift environment together with your existing environment creates a hybrid architecture. This on the upper picture here, you can see a one-tier architecture, but you can also have two-tier, three-tier architectures in a hybrid mode. This is all possible. And this is where most of our customers are going in the near future. We are pushing strategically to OpenShift-based installations, but that is something that has to come over the next years. Runbook automation is now going to be introduced and detailed and shown by Sebastian. And I'd like to hand over now to you. All yours.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Let's get our hands dirty, shall we, and dive right in. What you can see here is the first screen you will see when you open the Runbook section of our Watson AIOps. It's already showing that at the beginning you won't have any runbooks typically, but you can easily create new ones. I'm going to show you that in a few seconds. And there are also some sample runbooks you can load just to give you an idea of how runbooks can look like, and maybe copy some of those, expand them with your own ideas, your own environment, and have a nice set of runbooks to start from and expand on quite quickly. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm logged into the Netcool Operations Insight application right here. For our demo, we have set up our own hybrid environment. So if you want to look at the architecture again, you can scroll back in the video and see Fred's section on the different architectures. And you can see here in the bottom side, there is also a section about runbooks. But I'm going to go to my runbook through the menu on the left-hand side. You find it under Automations and Runbooks. And the first thing you will see is the Runbook library. This is the set of runbooks that I have already created on the system, and my colleagues as well. And today we are going to be looking at the Symnet Probe. If you're familiar with the object server, you might already have worked with it. The Symnet Probe is good for demo purposes because I can easily start it and stop it, and we get some nice events in our object server health dashboard, which indicates whether the Symnet Probe is running okay. So our scenario will be that the Symnet Probe fails for some reason. Our operator in question is looking at the health dashboard and seeing that something is amiss. And with the help of a runbook, we're going to fix the problem. So let's take a look at our health dashboard here. And I'm now in the background, I will now do something naughty and just kill off my Symnet Probe. So we will get an event that it's down.
So Symnet Probe is just a sample of what you can do. It can be anything. So for example, an Apache server that goes down and is under monitoring. So we're just waiting for a problem record. Something is happening. And what we're using in here is the Symnet Probe. And we're using the Symnet Probe because it's included in any native Netcool installation. So you have it out of the box. So it's quite easy for us to set up and show. And also for anybody else who wants to replicate this kind of scenario in a demo environment or a lab environment for self-training.
We now have the problem record here in our health dashboard. We can see that a Symnet Probe running on our system has disconnected. And I'm going to take the role of of an operator who has no idea about what a Simnet probe is and how it actually works and what to do. So in that case, I'm going to look to my runbook library and say, hopefully there is a runbook there that will help me solve this problem. Today I'm in luck because we already have a runbook here that's called Restart Simnet Probe, so that's looking very good for me. If I would have trouble finding it, I could search here and see all runbooks with the name probe in them. I can also search for tags if something is tagged the right way. Lets me easily find the correct runbook. And I can also see this has a very good rating and a very good success rate. So I'm confident that this is the right runbook for me. So I'm going to jump right in and click on Run Runbook. First thing I have to do is enter the correct parameters here. Luckily, some of those are already filled in with the correct defaults for our environment. Otherwise, I just easily would go back here and see the host name that my probe was running on and enter the host name in this host name field here. So all the parameters look okay. And what you can see here in the runbook, we have a step-by-step approach. So the first step is called login. And I'm going to, in order to manage the Simnet probe, I need to log in on the system. And you can see here with those nice tool symbols that we do have the parameters for user and host name directly replaced in the command. I don't need to do some copying and editing of the command, going back and forth and typing a lot. Instead, all the parameters are directly filled in. Now, for a command like SSH, that's nice, but ultimately not a make or break because it's just 2 parameters. But imagine you have a very long one, like a long curl command or something like that, with lots and lots of parameters, multiple line breaks, and so on. Maybe some quotation marks that need to be properly closed or brackets. Can be very tiresome and also dangerous if I have to manually edit all the time. Maybe if I do a mistake here, something might actually break on the system. So
I guess this is also a evolution type, isn't it? So you start somewhere and you make it better over time using feedback or because you use it and see you can make it differently in a better way. So it's saving more and more time.
Yeah, exactly. So every runbook can have different versions. So if you have a runbook that has not the perfect rating or success rate, and people enter feedback that a specific step can be improved, you put that right into the system, and you get something like a very close feedback loop on what is working and what isn't working. So if you are the operations manager or you are the one whose responsibility lies within maintaining the runbook library, you will get immediate feedback on the runbooks, how often they are used and how well they work. With that command, I'm going to go into my shell. I'm going to change my sharing so that you can see it. Okay, from that system, I just hit paste to enter my command. And I'm logged in on the target system where the Simnet probe is actually supposed to be running. So first step already done. I'm going to advance to the second step. It's called investigate the Simnet probe status. So the runbook author was kind enough to give some context here to see what's actually going on. So Simnet probe identifies itself as a Linux process with the process name nco_p_simnet. So that's some, if I'm absolutely new to the Simnet probe, that's some important piece of information that I already learned just by reading the runbook. So I'm once again copying the command and entering it on the system that I'm using. I don't get any output, so I'm going back to the runbook, and it tells me that if the output shows a running Simnet probe, the output would look like this, but I don't get one. So obviously nothing is running here, so I'm advancing to the next step.
I've just verified my problem.
Yeah, that's right. You just verified that the Simnet probe is actually not running. There could be multiple problems if the SIMnet probe is not connecting anymore. For example, the process could be running, but for some reason it could have stopped working. And then the resolution is something different than a process that has crashed.
And so the machine could go offline completely and could not be reachable. And with all this, you already eliminated quite a few causes.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And this is also something that would typically be reflected in this runbook by adding more and more of the symptoms and saying, if you can't reach the system, try to restart the system first. Things like that are things that naturally evolve over the life cycle of a runbook. In the third step, we're going to restart the SIMnet probe. Again, I'm just copying the command, very easy for me. I don't have to think a lot. I just enter the command and go on to the next step. And now I verify that the SIMnet probe has properly been restarted. Again, copy and paste, just enter it. And I'm very happy now because the process is showing up. I can check that output here and compare it to the sample output that has been given in the runbook, and it looks very similar. So that's it. At the end of a runbook, I get this small feedback section that's really fast to fill out. So I'm just going to give it 5 stars. I could put in some comments. These are especially helpful if you're giving a bad rating for some reason, or if you want to give the author a hint at what could be improved. Like, for example, I could write in there, system was not available, just like Fred said in his example, that and say, can you expand the runbook with how to restart a system? For now, I'm not going to put in a comment in, everything worked great. I click on runbook worked, and then I'm going to go over to my connection, and I see my connection information is green again. I get this event here that the probe has connected, and with that, I have completed a task that I was not aware of how to do it before at all. As we have said before, the SIMnet probe is a very easy piece of software that we have chosen for this demo because it's easy to work with. But you can imagine that there are applications that are not easy to work with. One that always comes to my mind would be like a database. You can't just restart a database. You need to properly disconnect all the applications first. You need to properly commit. Most of the times it's a two-way commit, all the database transactions. Then the database manager must be shut down. The database themselves must disconnect, stuff like that. And if you would just restart a database process by killing the process on a system level, a lot of applications might actually not be coming up again because the database tables may be in disarray.
I think you can also add documentation links to the runbooks, can you?
Yeah, you can do any kind of text that you want in the runbooks. You can put in links, put in screenshots as well. Those kind of things naturally make it easier. And if you have good documentation somewhere else, and you don't want to put it in directly into the runbook, then linking to it is certainly a good way. You can also put in background and context information. So as we saw before, somebody who is executing a runbook, they will implicitly learn something more that they maybe would not have known otherwise if they would just follow a step-by-step, do this kind of thing. So in the end, it's up to the runbook author to write the best runbooks for their environment. Certainly, it is that way that every operation team is different. And that also means that the runbooks will have a different focus on more experienced or more junior operators.
But what you have in here is still quite some labor-intensive process because you have to copy the parameters, you have to log into the system, so you have to have credentials. And I guess this is something we can help with, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true. However, what we learned from customers is that one of the things that is even more problematic is going from the disconnect event. I'm going to create it one more time, just for illustration purposes, to connect a disconnect command to the correct runbook. So imagine you are a customer and you have thousands of runbooks, and you have an enormous amount of events coming in. How do you connect the correct event to the correct runbook? And for this one, we have a concept that is called a trigger. So luckily, in order to connect the different events coming in to the correct runbooks, which would resolve them, there is a concept in Runbook Automation that is called a trigger. And a trigger is almost like a set of rules that select the correct event and then connect it to a specific runbook. I have created one here that should be able to connect the Simnet probe disconnect event to the restart probe runbook that we have just executed. It's really easy with the editor to create the proper trigger. So we give it a name and a description. As always, the better the name and description, the easier it is to find it again. And then we have these trigger conditions. The goal of a trigger condition is to create a set of rules that will identify my event the best and the most sure, so that only the event that I want to hit is going to be matching this. For now, I have 3 rules here. So the severity must be critical, that's the value 5. The alert group must be of probe, and the alert key must be probe Simnet. So I have identified the criticality, correct alert groups, and the correct alert keys. And I can check and run a small test here to see what kind of events would be matching this. So I run a new test, and I have found that I have exactly the one event in the past that I wanted to. This disconnect event is matching my trigger. So now
if your trigger is, for example, not efficient enough, you have too many events covering, this is a way how to find out and how to fine-tune your trigger statement, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. What you want is to have it as finely cut as possible, to not have any side effects on events that are similar, but are actually not working together with the runbook you have assigned. You don't want to have any overlap, typically, because usually you want to have that strong one-to-one correlation between one specific event and one specific runbook that solves the event.
So now we have this relationship between an outage event and a specific runbook to solve it. Do we see it somewhere in the event?
Yeah, I will get to that. We will be able to just use a context menu, actually. So it will be even easier for the operator to launch the correct runbook. I have also made a parameter mapping for this. You can see that down below. As you saw before, there are 2 parameters in the runbook, the username and the host name. And what is very nice here, so for the username, I put in always to use root user, because that's just the one user that is able to control the Simnet probe. Very important here is our event will have the correct hostname in it. So we don't have to enter the correct hostname anymore. We just can take it from the event, use the node value, and have the correct hostname already filled in. So no need for the operator to type in a hostname, no possibility for mistyping the hostname. And we will just take a look by going back to our event itself. So here it is. I'm opening the right-click menu, and here we have Launch Runbook. So I'm just clicking on that. And here is my runbook. Parameters are already filled in correctly. I'm just hitting Start Runbook. And I'm right where I was before, but now I didn't even have to look into the runbook library. I just clicked on the event, launched the runbook, and I'm right where I need to be. So I'm going to cancel this one here, because for now I want to do something else that Fred already looked at, the third and last scenario for today is, if that happens quite a lot, you don't want to go through the manual steps every time. You want to automate it. That's where the automation part of Runbook Automation comes in. And the concept of automations in Runbooks is that of reusable assets. So I'm going to show you a script automation that I've written. It's called check status and restart Simnet probe. And that one is reusable in any kind of number of runbooks. So I can write it once and then use it in as many runbooks as I like. That means if I have something like generic scripts that you might already have in your team, check some stuff on systems, do analysis, health analysis of the system overall, just gather some data, or do some generic cleanup or updates on the system, you can already put them in and use them in any kind of number of runbooks. And then we have more specialized ones like doing the Simnet probe restart itself. And those you can also reuse across multiple runbooks. There are different kinds of automations. For now, we were just looking at the script automation. I'm going to go into the edit mode to see how that looks like. So it's of a type script. So down here, we have a bash script. With scripting, we can do any kind of script. You just have to put in the correct line in the first line here for Unix systems, so they know which interpreter to use. And we can also connect to Windows systems to do PowerShell scripting. So this script here, it will check how many Simnet processes there are on the system. We'll stop all the existing ones. So this is a little bit more advanced. It will also take care of processes that might be hanging. Then restarting the Simnet probe and go back to the system. And let's take a look how that looks like. In the background here, I will just, for illustration purposes, launch a few Simnet probes so that we have something to look forward to. So for some reason, this system might have started a few Simnet probes and they might be hanging or something like that. And we go back to our runbook library and take a look at the automated one. Going to run it. And here we see we only have the host name left as a parameter. We have the automation in there, and all the manual steps are gone. We just have this one automated step here. And I'm going to run the automation and we'll see what happens. Now we see the results of the automation. We have the output that there were 8 Simnet probes running. We have all the IDs of the processes that have been stopped. And we have restarted the Simnet probe and the startup is now complete. So actually, as the operator, I didn't have to do anything. I just had to click run one time. I'm seeing the output. Of course, you want to have scripts with good output that explain what is happening. You don't just want scripts that produce just a no output at all and say, no output is good output. And so I have put in some output here for context that the Simnet probe has been restarted, that some Simnet probes have been stopped, and that the startup is now complete.
There's also one significant piece in here. You do not have to log into a system. So if you provide this kind of tooling to an operator, you're taking away the need for credentials. Because if you are in a productive environment, for example, a bank environment, and you have high secure environments, you never ever give away root access to something, even if you have to have root access to restart something. And with this kind of automation, you're taking away the need for this kind of access. And the system in the background is authorized to do this. It will log what it does. So you can see later on which runbooks have run, when they have been run, how they have been initiated, if that was a manual runbook or a fully automated runbook. And the operator does not have to have access to the backend system. And that is very significant.
Yeah, exactly. And they still can do stuff on the system, even without the access. But they can only do what you have written down in an automation before. So it's very fine-cut, very granular access to the systems, via Runbook Automation. So I'm, as before, I'm completing that runbook here, giving it 5 stars and clicking on Runbook Worked. The way to get a fully automated runbook would be to create a new trigger or change the existing one and say that this automated one should run automatically. Then if an event comes in, it will be restarted automatically without human interaction. And you can see the execution record on our execution page, like this one here that we have just done. When it happened, why it happened, who did it. So in the end, you will have a complete auditable log of all the actions that happened within Runbook Automation, both the manual and the automated ones. Fred, Andreas, this is the demo part of Runbook Automation. Do you have anything you want to add right now?
I think this is a pretty good starting point of how to get your hands dirty with Runbook Automation. I hope you have seen how easy it is to set something up, and the editor I really like, because it's something like a text editor. You cut and paste stuff in there. It's really straightforward. So if you already have a starting point, something like a knowledge article, it's so easy to create these kind of runbooks, and they will become better over time and make it really easy for you. And have a play with it. It's included in Watson AIOps, and it comes with a default installation of Event Manager. When I'm in a POC situation, when I have to demo this kind of thing, it's so easy to create these kind of parameters or screen captures. If you have a knowledge article, it's so easy to transform these kind of things. And for example, you have added a script environment to really transform some of these skeletons from the knowledge articles into real runbooks, haven't you?
Yes, exactly. So the use case was that they had a lot of operational procedures in various knowledge bases, and they were looking for an automated way to transfer them to Runbook Automation. Because of course they didn't want to type a 4-digit number of runbooks in there. What they did was leverage the Runbook Automation public API, which is covering basically everything from the application, do a mass import of new runbooks. And with the help of a business partner, they extracted everything, transformed it via some scripting to give it the structure that Runbook needs, and then just put it all in one go. And I think that was just a few weeks that they needed to do this, and just with that comparably low amount of effort, they had a really large library of runbooks. And
that they want to totally finish, that they need to polish these kind of skeletons, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's something you always need to do. It depends on how structured your base data already is. If your knowledge articles are already in a very structured way, so for example, you have headings and you say each heading is a new step, then this is very easy to script. If your source material is very unstructured and very different, naturally you need to put in a little bit more work. But even if you're just importing everything as blank text and as one step, you already have the control Runbook Automation gives you in the library by seeing which kind of knowledge article is executed the most often by the operators, how do they like it, what is the rating. So you can easily spot outdated or obsolete documents with the statistical information that we give in the application.
Actually, the statistical information you also can show to your upper management that the efficiency of your IT operations business is improving and that you're saving time. So this is also a very important piece, and you're gathering very important information about your IT processes you can later use for further analytics.
Mm-hmm. This kind of efficiency dashboard is something that has been added to the product recently, isn't it?
That's correct.
So Sebastian, is there anything else you want to show here?
I think we covered the most important stuff. Of course, there is always more to learn and more intricate details, but I think anybody interested should be off to a good start with Runbook Automation. As always, for all customers that are interested, we are happy to help you do your first steps and also second and third steps with Runbook Automation.
So I'm grabbing back the screen here for me. So we've covered manual runbooks. We have evolutioned it into a semi-automated runbook, and we also described how to create a fully automated runbook. And just to summarize it, Runbook Automation is a capability that helps you greatly to automate the operations in your environment. And the biggest enhancement in here is that you can hand over parameters to a predefined procedure that can then be executed step by step. You gather feedback at the end of the procedure, and you can enhance your manual runbook to become a semi-automated runbook by adding so-called push-button automations, which are scripted effects which are running in the background where you do not need to have credentials, and you just simply push the button and you see the results on the screen in your runbook. And if your runbook has been evolved nicely enough into a stage where it can be fully automatically executed against your environment, then there's also this capability. If you receive a specific event, then the Runbook Automation system will see this event, map the correct automated runbook to it, execute the runbook, and try to rectify automatically this specific event by applying this runbook. And this is what we want to do with Runbook Automation. Runbook Automation can be easily integrated into various kind of environments. You can add it to monitoring environment by launching in context, creating these kind of tools in there. You can add it to your incident problem management environment. You can, well, it comes out of the box to Watson AIOps Event Manager. There it is pre-integrated, of course, that's the easiest to use. But nevertheless, this is something you can add to other pieces of your IT service management environment as well. And with that, I would like to give a very big thank you to Sebastian and Andreas. Thank you so much. All the nice greetings back to Böbling. And for you as the audience, if you like to see something else in this SWAT Explains video series, just give me a notice. You can leave a message in here, you can send me an email, whatever you want. Thank you so much and have a nice day.